come into our training center to start training at about 8 weeks old. And from there on out, they're basically in training until they get matched up with their veteran. The very first thing we teach them, as you see Elvis is doing very well, is eye contact. With it, anywhere I go, his eyes are just going to be waiting for me to say something. Elvis, come.
Oh.
Yes. So just with that eye contact, no matter what the veteran needs, whether it be something subtle that I don't even just speak about, I can still be talking and I was able to cue him to sit without even having to acknowledge him with it. Just having that dog pay attention, check in often helps us with these guys in the future once they get placed with it. So once they learn their eye contact, one of the cues we teach these guys is something called touch. It's basically a nose bop. It's just something fun, easy. It just kind of gets their focus back on us with it. But something as little as a touch is going to turn into so much bigger with these guys. So they start off with a little touch. Just maybe there's a shopping cart coming. I can just have him get out of the way just by doing a little touch. He'll move back out of the way of it. But eventually it turns into, Elvis, push. Yes.
Oh.
So what goes from just a nose bop in my hands, now you can open handicap buttons with it. Elvis, push. Yes, good boy. That was a really hard nose bop. Hurt your nose. Shake up. Let's go. And then it can also change from closing stuff for us. Sit, wait. Elvis, push.
Okay.
Yes, good boy. So a lot of our cues, as you're going to see today, are going to build off of each other with it. So something that might just seem something little that you might say like, oh, why is that even necessary? They all grow into something bigger eventually with it. So I'm assuming a lot of y'all said y'all had dogs at home with it. I'm assuming y'all play fetch, have fun with them, do lots of fun stuff with them. So when these guys are young, you guys haven't walked around yet, I don't think. We have a lot of different play yards around. We have so many amazing kennel staff that are at our facility. And they're going to start playing fetch with these guys. For them, it's such a fun game. We're throwing the ball, I'm bringing it back to you, I'm putting it back in your hands, you're throwing it again. They're a retriever, that's what they're bred to do. It's the best thing ever. What they don't realize is they're actually learning a cue for us. They're learning how to get items and bring them back to your person with it. So what they think is just a fun game with it, you can see, he's like, I'm ready to go get this for you. Elvis, get it. Give, yes. So for him, we started teaching this when they're 8 weeks old babies. We throw the tennis ball and they bring it back to us. It's the best game ever. Oh, let's get leash. And it just keeps building up again and again with it. Sit, wait. So let's say I'm just out shopping with it and I haven't, let's go, drop my keys with it. I know, those are weird keys, buddy. Give, yes, good boy. They're able to pick up anything that might end up on the ground. A lot of our veterans might have bad backs, bad knees, and bending down can be really hard on them. So no matter what size dog, whoops, I broke it, buddy, I'm sorry. Give. Yes, I don't have to bend down at all with it. Let's go. Sit. Oh, excuse you. So along with getting different items, I know you asked a very good question earlier. So we teach all of our dogs the same about basic 65 cues that they learned growing up with it. But what happens once they graduate with it? And the veterans are going to need them are customizable. So this past graduation, I'm not ready for it yet, buddy. I know you're excited. Elvis, right here. Sit. So this last graduation, I worked with a veteran that was paralyzed with it. And he needed his dog to help get certain type of clothing, whether it be get his shoes, get his shirt, get his hat. He was not able, his wheelchair did not fit into his closets. So trying to, instead of crawling on the ground to get in your closet with it, he was able to teach the dog how to get different things. So you saw how Elvis can fetch a dumbbell, fetch items with it, and then we can start naming stuff. Stay, I don't know if you can stop me put this here, buddy. See this? Elvis, get phone. Good boy. Give, yes. So we're able to start naming different items to what they might be with it. Yes, good boy. Does that make sense with the question you had earlier with it? Yeah, so we teach them how to retrieve, how to pick up things. They can put anything in their mouth. We do as light as the heavy as prosthetics, where you might not know, prosthetics can weigh quite a bit at times with it. I think we have one upstairs that's almost 20 pounds with it. They can be quite heavy, so the dogs learn how to pick up different items for them. You can get that, buddy. Yes. So along with playing fetch in the yards, I'm sure some of your dogs like playing tug with the rope a lot too. That's a lot of fun for those guys. So same way as playing Elvis, tug. Yes. So they are able to open fridges with them. They can fetch water bottles out of the fridge for us. Push, and then able to push it back closed with it. So say we have a veteran who might have prosthetic leg. I don't know if you guys have ever spoken to somebody that has one, but it gets tiring having them on at times. So sometimes they want to sit on the couch and just take it off. But putting it back on takes a little bit of time. You have to go through all the steps, putting on sleeves and everything back on, and they don't want to put it on just to get a bottle out of the fridge to come right back to the couch with it. So they're able to send their dogs to go get a bottle for them out of the fridge and bring it back to them instead of the hassle of having to get up. So the little stuff you might not think about on the day-to-day, like, yes, I like to be lazy. I don't always like to get off the couch, but I'm physically able to get off the couch with it. That's just my mentality, being lazy with it. These guys aren't able to do it on a day-to-day basis, so these dogs are able to do so much to help them out with it. You want to do that again? Tug. Yes, good boy. Push. Yep. Oh, yes. I don't need to open again. They already got it, buddy. They already saw it. Thank you. Sick. Yes. He gets a little too excited sometimes with it. You gonna wave again to them? Yes. So with these guys, they learn so many different stuff that can help them out with it. But I know, as you guys saw earlier with the item-wise, sit. Actually, come here, buddy. Sarah, do you mind me sending you an item? You don't have to get up. You can just stay right there if you want. Sit. Elvis, take it. Go to. You just call him. Elvis. Go to her. Elvis. There you go.
Good boy.
You give it back to him. Oh. He's like, but you dropped this piece. Elvis, get it. You can do it. Get it, buddy. That's how old is he? He's 2 years old.
You got so
But
close.
you got it. I believe in you. Elvis. Ellie, get it. You got it.
You can do it, Elvis.
I think you can do it. I'll help you slightly. Here you go. It's right under you. So I don't know if you saw, this was something really hard for him to pick up. I didn't realize how flat it was on the ground with it. But as you saw, he keeps trying with it. One big thing we teach our dogs, I don't know if you realize, I have a treat pouch on right now with it. This is his daily kibble that I'm feeding him with it. So our dogs, they get fed their kibble every day by hand with it. So we do positive reinforcement training. So they're gonna keep trying until you hear that yes. So I don't know if you guys even realize, each time he does something positive, I say yes, and he gets a treat with that. And that's him knowing, yes, I did it correct. I wanna keep trying. So with this, I wasn't saying yes. He kept trying and trying and trying. He's like, okay, I'm not doing something right. So let me reposition myself, let me try again. And he's just gonna keep on trying until he gets it with it. So we actually had, I don't know, did any of y'all get the newsletter from us? So this past time, they actually wrote about this story that I've been telling for so long with it. We had one veteran once who was having a stroke. And as you saw when Elvis just did his gift phone a minute ago, the dog was able to go and get the phone for the veteran. But the dog kept trying to put it in his right hand with it, where he normally puts it. He was having a stroke on that side of the body with it. The dog was like, okay, my guy's not saying yes, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm gonna keep trying, and the dog was able to eventually put it in the side of the hand. He was able to move with it and call for help with it. So that's why we do our positive training with it. We don't want them to say like, oh, I didn't get punished, I can give up with this. We want them to keep trying again and again until they get that result they want with it. And as you saw, he didn't give up. He might have gone like, okay, like, he paused for a minute, he's like, okay, how can I do this better? Because it's not going the way I wanted to. But they keep trying eventually with it. Stay. So with these guys, have y'all ever seen a service dog out in public with it? So I know whenever I go to restaurants, I actually just went flying with him. I don't know if you can imagine a little sitting in the back of the airplane, those little seats, that little tiny leg room in front. He's able to perfectly fit directly in your little carry-on space with it. and squeeze very tight. We actually have some amazing airline seats that I think American Airlines donated to us with it, so we're able to practice here. But at restaurants all the time, I always get all the waiters are so confused when I go to leave after I'm done eating. They're like, we didn't even know there was a dog under the table the whole time. Because even a 90-pound dog like him, he shouldn't be as noticeable with it. So stay right around, Sean. Ellis, release. Under. He would just completely squeeze under and, whoops, sorry, that was your foot. He would just completely squeeze under and be out of the way. This was probably one of my favorite keys at A&M when I was a student. Release. So I'm sure probably at least a few of y'all have been to a college university and seen how the big 300 size classrooms have people seating in them. Under. So whenever we're in the seats, I get to squeeze my feet as snug as possible so people can still walk in that little aisle between the seats with it. So our dogs are able to squeeze. Even a 90-pound dog can squeeze and get out of the way of people if need to be with it.
How long of an airline flight could he get into that and stay?
So I took him to Florida last week. It was like 2 or 3 hours with him. He just slept the whole time with it. We have some people that fly 5-6 hours. They can. So a fun fact about these guys, you being silly, buddy, they actually go potty on cue. So when we're at the airport, right before we load the flight up, we're gonna have them go potty in the little, every airport has a turf grass inside of each terminal with it now.
They have a what?
Like a turf grass where they can go potty inside. They might not be the most ideal places, but they all have them somewhere, so we can give them the cue to go potty with it. They're able to relieve themselves so they can hold it the whole flight, and then we just make sure to limit that they don't get a whole lot of food that morning. They still do eat. We're not going to starve
It just
them.
seems like he'd be so uncomfortable in an airline.
Yeah, these guys, they
6
have,
hours.
for their whole 2 years of their training with us, they've learned when they can nap and when it's working time. So like when I was going through security and all that, he was in working mode. He was very focused, very much doing stuff. And then the second I stop, they take a nap with it. They know that's their nap time. So he was actually exhausted. So the whole flight, he was like, I'm going to take an amazing 2-hour nap because I know as soon as we land, it's going to be go, go, go. So these guys are very adaptable of what they can and cannot handle with it.
One of our most amazing success stories, just going off of a flight time, real quick, Chrissy. They travel a lot together. The dog has given the veteran the confidence to get out and go about. Like they took a break from school and she went and saw the Northern Lights for, to and from school. She stayed in like this beautiful igloo, just her and Gus, just her little sidekick. But they've been on flight crew for as long as 10 hours. And Gus will stay exactly where he's supposed to for the 10 hours.
Jeez.
And he's got to go potty after that.
It's always, as soon as the flight lands, like before we even go potty ourselves, so like the dog is priority. We find the grass right away and let them relieve themselves.
Aww.
Release. Good boy. Oh, you can get up. Which way you want to go, buddy? So along with those cues, those were some of the more kind of beginning cues our dogs start to learn when they first get in program. Once they start getting a little bit older, they start learning some of our disability cues with it. So we train our dogs for both mobility and PTS with it. So going around the PTS side, our dogs can do a flap. That'd get very hairy. All the way. Can I come on this side? Flap. Good job, buddy. So it's basically a deep pressure therapy on your lap with it. And say, a lot of times the malls or just going out in public can be really hard. Release. Oh, you're very hairy. A lot of times just going out in public can be really hard on our veterans with it. So sometimes they just need to put a focus on not what's their surroundings, but just focus on their dog for a moment. So just by doing the lap and getting the deep pressure therapy with it, it can really help them out. Along with, see me? He can just rest his head on me with it. See me? Yes. So a lot of our veterans, maybe they work in an office setting with it, and the day-to-day office life can be really hard too with it. So they can just, a lot of times if they start twitching their foot with it, the dog is just automatically going to start resting their head on it. So they can just focus on these guys for a moment. Touch. Good boy. Brace. Yes. So these guys are also able to help our veterans brace up. It's not putting your full pressure on the dog. It's just that extra momentum sometimes you use from the chairs to get up and get you back in that standing position with it. Just since their legs can be a bit hard on time. Just growing up can be a bit hard sometimes with it. Good boy, buddy. And then probably one of the last and more important cues. Can I borrow your foot
Yes,
for a
of
moment?
course.
So our dogs know if somebody is to pass out, they're gonna go and get help for you. So if, I don't know if you guys ever saw the trend a few years back of somebody was in a store and a service dog came up to them and started pawing their foot and they're like swatting the dog away to go away with it. Then if they're not with their handler, something's wrong with their handler with it. So you should never see a service dog without their handler with it. So with our dogs, if we're to pass out, Elvis, get help.
What's wrong?
He's
What's
gonna
wrong?
go up to somebody and bring them back with me.
Good boy.
Try it one more time. Elvis, come here. Good boy, Elvie.
What's wrong?
Good job, buddy.
Good job.
So he's just gonna go and find the closest person and bring them back to this person who might be having something wrong with them and just get the help that they need it with it. Sit. And other than my final 2 cues, is there any other big cues besides the finale one?
Not anyone I can think
So, with these guys, they do like to say a prayer for our veterans with it. Do you want to pray, buddy? Good boy. So they like to pray for all of our veterans on their waiting list for it. Say first. Wait. Yes, good boy. And then sit. And can you wave goodbye to them? Good boy. And that's a lot of stuff all at once. You guys have any questions? And that's just barely touching the waters of what these dogs can do with it. As I said, they can do about 65 different stuff.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So you guys obviously have a ton of time with them, and
Yeah.
they're alpha, and they learn all your cues. What does the transition period look like with the actual veteran? I mean, are they in here for 6 months doing this also, so they build that bond, or how does that work?
Yeah, so our dogs rotate every 3 months to a new location, whether that be our training center. We have multiple different puppy raiser areas where, as I said, I came from A&M. We also have the Dallas Fort Worth puppy raisers, and then we have 3 different prison programs. So they're gonna rotate every 3 to 4 months to a different location, just so we want them to bond to their handler, but we don't want that bond to be too strong, because that's not gonna be their favorite person with it. Plus, everybody's gonna train a little bit differently. I might walk a little bit faster than Sarah might walk. I might do cues a little different than somebody else, and we don't know what veteran they're gonna go to yet. So once they get to their grad age and we think they're ready to be matched with a veteran, we call in the veterans we have, and the veterans are gonna be up here for a 2-week process. The first 5 days of that, they're working with all of our dogs we have available for graduation, so it's normally double the amount of people. So say we have 4 veterans at graduation, we're gonna have 8 dogs. So the first 5 days, they work with every single dog we have. We kind of see like which dog is leaning to what people, because we don't pre-pick. We actually, it's gonna sound weird, we listen to our dogs. By the 5th day, the dog is going to start like migrating to this one person. It's going to work better for one person than other people. And the dogs get to choose, because if I would pass out and my dog didn't like me, my dog might be, okay, it's time to go get that steak on the counter with it, versus, okay, I want to save my guy's life with it. So we do want our dogs to have that strong bond with their veteran with it. So day 5, we let the veterans know which dog picked them with it. And then the second week, we customize that dog for them.
Perfect.
And then it sounds like a 2-week process. It's really a lifetime process with this. They can never get rid of us, no matter how much they try. We're always there. We let them go home for about 2 weeks, bond with their dog, and then we go back out for about a week and then see how are they doing. Can they start going in public more? Can they start get the full access they need with it? Because the dogs and them, they're exhausted after those 2 weeks. They need some time just to settle in, rest, plus they're changing homes again. Every dog settles into a new home a little bit differently, even though they're used to it. It's still a brand new place, and a lot of times it's a brand new state to them. So, yes, it's a 2-week process, but basically it's a lifelong process because they never get rid of us.
What if you have like 2 dogs pick a veteran? Like how do you figure that out? You just kind of give them a little more time.
The dogs actually will have competitions within themselves. You can see like sometimes we'll have 2 dogs fighting for one person, and then one dog would just kind of slowly start to outshine another one. It sounds bad, but every dog, like by the end of it, the process works really well with it. Every dog works with what veteran they might need. We actually have one dog in the next building over. It's a dog I was actually able to puppy raise when I was in school. And he he was an interesting dog with it. He was an amazing boy, but he just would not pick a person. I think he went through like almost 3 years of trying to find somebody, by far the longest dog we've ever had taken. And then one day our veterinarian came up to our graduation, and his dog's name was Boyd, and Boyd just came and sat by his feet. He's like, okay, I found my person, I'm done. Like, it was so sweet.
What about you? Do you bond with them, and is it hard for you to break that bond?
It's always hard, but they're meant for something bigger than just being my dog with it. As much as I love to adopt all my kiddos with it, they're not meant to be my dog with it. They're meant to save someone's life.
Do you have a personal dog?
I have one. I have a Dalmatian at home. So, yes.
How do the veterans get on the list? What are the requirements? Do they have certain, is it just they write a letter and y'all pick?
Yeah, there's a full application. I'm sure Sarah's going to go more into it.
Yeah, we can definitely
What kind
cover.
of waiting list is there?
It varies depending on the time with it. Sometimes the waiting list can be a bit shorter than others. Sometimes it gets longer. I don't think there's a for sure time with it, just because it varies so much with it. But normally it's at least a year, I'd say.
We refer to it as more of a waiting pool rather than a list. Of course, we would never want to lessen the severity of one individual's disability over another individual's, but we do understand that maybe somebody that does have all of their limbs, however, has absolutely debilitating post-traumatic stress and not able to leave the house, versus somebody that they may have a prosthetic, but mentally they're in a very good state of mind. They do have individuals helping them. When it comes to that, you kind of weigh the individual that needs that help immediately, which is going to be, in some cases, the post-traumatic stress. Maybe they don't have a support system, very hard for them to get out of the house. That's when you start getting to the statistics that 22 veterans a day do commit suicide. So those will be the calls that we're going to answer first. But currently there are over 80 veterans in our pool, ranging from invisible to visible disabilities.
And
But
why
the
labs?
application-
He asked, why do we choose labs? So for us, Labradors tend to work really well with the type of training we do. While any type of dog can be a service dog, for the type of retrieval, the mobility side of it, labs just do really well. They want to please their person, plus they're very food motivated, and since we train off of food with it, it really helps our training. But we do, as I don't think you were here earlier, we do different breeds too. We do Goldens, Poodles, any type of mixes of those, and then we have a few random breeds that pop up here and there that we just try out with it. Just labs have the best overall personality to be a service dog for us.
Do you prefer boys or girls?
There's no difference within the training wise. I personally have a preference, but there's no side of, oh, males train better than the girls, or the girls learn faster. I think the boys might take a little bit longer to mature a little bit, but I think that's boys and just
right.
boys.
That's universal, yeah.
They're so shy, and I'm like, no, that's just the way it is.
But they all do amazing. There's not one that is better than the other with it.
And then I noticed the one that we came in with was, he wasn't neutered. I mean, do you neuter them? Is there a reason they shouldn't be neutered? Or?
Yeah, so all of our dogs that will become service dogs will be neutered or spayed with it.
Okay.
He's just one exception. He's our CEO's dog with it, and our
Okay.
founders. But all of our dogs through a program that get placed will absolutely be spayed and neutered. They're all up to date on vaccines. We have an in-staff vet clinic in this building that keeps them up to date on everything. They're actually having a spay and neuter day over there. So there's lots of surgeries going on in that side of the building. So all of our dogs that get
I
placed
just
will
wondered
be.
if there
He's
was a
just the
reason.
one that's not. but
Okay.
Everybody else
She'd
is.
also said that they're gonna start doing their own breeding, and he's the one that they're gonna use to breed, and their first batch is.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we actually have.
I wondered about that, so,
Coming in
okay.
July,
Okay.
We're just tipping our toes, so.
yeah.
His baby
Okay.
mom is in the other room, so.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why he's not. But all of our dogs that will get placed will all be spayed or neutered with
Okay.
it. Thanks.
Chrissy, thank you so much. I
What a lot.
Thank you,
It's all day long.
We still have 80 plus veterans on our list. So the dogs that you see that don't have an American flag behind them, those are still placements, but they are either an in-home working dog. So maybe they learned all their cues, they're absolutely phenomenal, but they really want to bark at everybody that goes by the house. Or maybe they are just really not sure those leaves that are blowing by, they look super sketchy. So, life-threatening. So, but because of that, they're still phenomenal. They can provide that companionship to veterans that still are suffering greatly in the home, maybe don't have a lot of family ties due to their mental and physical disabilities that they've acquired because of their service. They do still need help being woken up from those nightmares. They do need help getting the phone in case of an emergency. The dogs can actually help them do laundry and things like that throughout the house too. So we will place them in the home as a working dog. They just will never receive a vest to go out in public, to take them to Walmart, Target, things like that. But they are allowed to go anywhere that any of our pet dogs are. We do also have some dogs that they kind of get into our program and they're going, I love what you're doing here, great mission, but it is not for me. So some of those dogs, for example, they can't keep their nose off the ground. They just want to smell everything and anything. Or they absolutely love kiddos. Like they will break their training to run off and go see kids in, wherever they're at. So the dogs that can't keep their noses off the ground typically end up going into like TSA, search and rescue, drug detection. We actually have a human cadaver dog that works with some crime units. We have one dog that works in such high security clearance with our government that we can't even know where he's at half the time. So even though they don't make it into becoming a public access service dog, they still go on to do amazing work. The dogs that can't keep their noses off the ground too, one amazing story, there's actually a dog over here. He is one of the middle pictures. His name was originally Nick. They now changed it to Darwin, super fitting. He actually is helping to sniff out invasive snails in the Galapagos Islands that were preventing sea turtles from coming back and laying their eggs, and it was damaging the ecosystem. So all of our trainers are like, I'll go check on him. I'll see how he's doing.
Wow, that's incredible.
But some of the dogs that can't stay away from kiddos, or they just really love people. These are two of my favorite stories. We have some dogs that go to work in children advocacy centers and will help kiddos go through very traumatizing things that no kiddo should ever need to go through. And if it's too hard to tell an individual what they have experienced, they can tell the dogs what they've been through. So we actually have placed a couple dogs in children advocacy centers here in Texas, one in Omaha, and we are getting ready to place another in New Mexico, I believe. So those are facility dogs. They have public access strictly in the facility in which they work in, not like Walmart, Target, anything like that. Any questions so far? I know I'm kind of throwing a bunch of information at you.
Why did the handler, she mentioned prison?
Yes.
Okay. What,
Great
they go to
question.
prison?
So, each Patriot Paws service dog costs a total of $35,000 after their full 2 years of being trained. Our prison program is actually part of the reason that cost is so low. I know you're thinking $35,000, how's that low? If it weren't for our prison program, the cost would actually be closer to $55,000 per dog. So we work with 3 prison units here in Texas, 2 women's units and 1 men's unit out of Gatesville and Teague, Texas. The women and men are very heavily interviewed to come into our prison training program. They cannot have any crimes that involve, kiddos, animals, things of that nature. They do go through, again, very heavy interview process. Once they are vetted, once they are approved to be a part of the program, they start helping us train the dogs. So they perform a lot more of the heavy duty, the potty training, because they're with those dogs 24/7. Those dogs actually live in the actual cell unit with their inmates 24/7. So we do have specific guards that are assigned to that area that they kind of oversee the Patriot Paws program. They're kind of our eyes and ears. And I will tell you, it is absolutely a phenomenal program. It's a win-win, not only for us because it helps decrease our cost, but it teaches the inmates a valuable skill that they can use when they're paroled. Actually, about 30% of inmates do go into animal-related fields when they are paroled because of our program. This young gentleman, when he was paroled, actually started his own dog training program in Arizona, thanks to what he had learned from our program. And unfortunately, if you're familiar kind of with the parole rate or recidivism rate at the rate of which you return to prison after being paroled, it's very high within the state of Texas. Within the first 3 years, it's within the 60 to 70%. After those 3 years, it goes down to about 25%, which is still pretty high. Inmates that are in our program, recidivism rate is less than 1%. So it drastically impacts the communities that they go into. It gives them a skill. Several inmates, their families have actually let us know that it's really saved their children. It's taught them to give back instead of being selfish and taking, and not taking responsibility for their actions. And it's really improved their family dynamics too.
Is it all public donations or they're matching funds from the government?
We do not receive any government funding.
That's a shame.
So we, every single donation that we receive is actually usually in increments of $25 or less. So a couple veteran stories for you all. This beautiful young lady right here, her name is Freedom, and her dog is Gus. That's who I was referring to earlier, that does the 10-hour flights. Freedom was a combat medic in the U.S. Army, so you can imagine some of the things that she saw and endured were very difficult. When Freedom came out of the Army, she did not leave her house for almost 4 years unless her mother or her husband was with her. Her husband was also active duty though at the time, so when he was also deployed, that was very hard on her. She had debilitating night terrors, anxiety being in public. The outside world was too much to bear. When she got Gus not only gave her the courage, now this is within 6 months of having him, Gus not only gave her the courage to say, you know what, I think I'm gonna go back to school. I think I'm gonna take what I learned from my combat medic training and I want to learn to become a doctor someday. She went back to school. Not only that, she graduated summa cum laude with a degree in pre-med in biology. She then was accepted a year later into the best medical school in the world and went to the Imperial College of London. Her and Gus traveled all the way to London, England, and she went to school there for a year and a half. Gus went into the lab with her every single day and had his own personal protective equipment. So he wore his own lab coat, goggles, and booties. I'll show you all a picture before we go. But she actually does have a full-time job now here working at a hospital. She does live in Texas, and Gus still goes to work with her every day. And when they do need to go into the research lab, he still will go with her. So Gus, she said, Gus gives me the courage to remember the person that I used to be and helps me to be that person again every day. And she said, before Gus, I was just kind of on autopilot, trying to get through every day to just survive. But now he's given me a life worth living. So that's why we're here at the end of the day. It's still very emotional to talk about. She's become a really dear friend as well, and she just amazes me she's just an incredible person.
What is the life expectancy of the dog, and do they get a second dog, at one?
Yes, so remind me of your name again.
Aaron.
I'm sorry?
Aaron.
Okay, yes, Aaron and I were actually talking about that earlier. So we actually have a veteran here visiting us that is from Boston. We received a phone call from him about 2 weeks ago. Sorry if I get a little emotional, it's a little hard. He had to put down his first Patriot Paws service dog from us. To hear him cry on the phone like that was awful. We do place dogs not just for the lifetime of the dog, but for the veteran as well. So when that veteran feels that the time is right in his heart, we will again be here for him to place another service dog for him, again, completely free of charge. He will never pay a penny for that dog. In our mind, he signed a blank check up to his whole life for us. So it's the least that we can do to give him a furry companion that lets him know that he doesn't have to be alone. He doesn't have to face the terrible things that he's seen by himself. He can have that companion there with him. So it's been really hard to see him struggle these past couple weeks, but groups like y'all being here, that's That's why we're able to help. So thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're starting to get those terrible phone calls, and it's really hard. Because I mean, my own dog, I love him with everything, but he's scared of his own shadow. But these, you take somebody that helped to get you dressed every day and taught you that you're so much more than your disability, and gave you the courage to think about and talk about things that you were so scared to once think about and talk about. They gave you your life back. And now to have to say goodbye to them and face every day without them, I don't know how they do it. But we flew that veteran out here. We knew that this wasn't a time for him to be by himself. So he's going to be with us for a couple weeks and get kind of into a good mindset. And we'll go from there, one day at a time. That's all we can do.
This is a workroom. Basically, Purina Pro Plan is our sponsor for dog food. So they run about $27,000 to $28,000 a year just on dog food. If you know, good dog food can cost you $65 a bag. You run about one bag per dog.
Once upon a time, Patriot Paws, we of course did not have this beautiful kennels facility. When Patriot Paws had first started, we actually housed all of our dogs in a metal building on the other side of campus. It did not have any running water and no heat and no air conditioning. So whenever there was inclement weather, we'd have to move the dogs into a more stable, temperature controlled environment. But even with there being no running water, our kennel team would still hand scrub every water bowl, every toy, everything that those dogs interacted with throughout the day. We are very diligent about making sure that we understand that these dogs, they're not just a pet, they are going to be someone's lifeline. So we always want to make sure that we're giving them the absolute best care possible, even while they are in training when they're babies here. And that is just the pure magic that Miss Regina and her team do. They love these dogs so much, like their own, and we've done a couple, I don't know if you guys ever heard of North Texas Giving Day. So one of our videos this year is going to be kind of a little bit behind the scenes of what our kennel team does. And they made me so emotional talking about how much that they just love each and every one of these dogs, and how amazing it is to see them grow up, and just all the love that they pour into making each one of these dogs possible. It's just really touching.
What percentage of your staff is voluntary, or, versus paid salaries, would you say?
So we only have 26 full-time staff members. We do have over 400 volunteers that do help us,
okay.
But only 26 are paid.
In this facility right here, you have 400 volunteers?
Oh, well, between Texas A&M and Dallas.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And the prison program, too.
Okay.
We have 2 paid employees at Texas A&M and 24 paid employees here.
Okay.
Tom. So we have been very blessed, and she's considered one of our key volunteers that volunteers for us. We actually named our vet clinic after her. So we have general population, which has 16 runs that can house 2 dogs at a time. They all have indoor-outdoor yards. If you chew up my grass, you go over here on the concrete. If you don't chew up my grass, you go over here. And then we have an isolation kennels, which if we get a rescue dog or new puppies, we put them over there for at least 10 days to 2 weeks so that they do not pass the diseases back and forth. The air conditioner in this building is hospital grade, so it does not recycle air within the building itself. 7 times an hour, it brings in outside air and recirculates it that way, because you've all heard of kennel cough and different things like that. And when we built it, I want to focus on training dogs and not maintaining everything all the time. So we took the time to build it right so that we can focus on training dogs to get them in the hands of these veterans. Right now, we're back up to a 2-year waiting list. And
Did you say 2 year?
yeah, 2 years. It's about 2 years. It's been as high as 5. But then we got it down to 18 months, but now we're back up to a 2-year waiting list.
So a lot of times the veteran that comes in for their new facility visit and is just getting on the list may see this puppy in ISO that's here for 8 weeks, will be ready to graduate by the time they're ready to get their hearing. Some develop a little faster, mostly girls. And usually takes
seems like it
Usually takes 2
Yeah.
years to fully
We
train.
can wait
so.
anywhere from 18 months to 2.5 years. We've had some that's gone on to the 3, but it's usually the big goofy males. You gotta calm down a little bit more before we put you in somebody's home. But
Well, if a veteran is out of the area, do they come here to train with the dog, or do you
Yes.
send someone up there, or how do you do that?
both. That's another thing that sets us apart. Is once you apply, if you're outside of 500-mile radius, you don't have to come here. We do video conferences and things like that with you. But we've placed dogs in 39 different states across the nation. But once it's time within the 6 months of time, you're about to get a dog 3 to 6 months out, I'll send a trainer to that home. To get an idea, it's not like I'm inspecting your home. I'm inspecting the environment. An example, if you've got neighbor dogs that run up and down the fence all the time barking and growling, I need to know that, to know what kind of dog I'm placing with you. I did one a couple of years ago, went and checked to see his home. I live on a farm. Okay, you got farm animals. First thing I see when I get out of the car is a 3-foot rooster running around. I go, okay, I don't need a Labrador that has a high prey drive. You know, all those things are little things that nobody thinks about. I want your life to be great, but in the first 2 weeks, if you have a pet rooster and my service dog ate it, we're not going to have the best bond. So we take time to do an in-home check, an environment of where we're placing these dogs that we spend so much time on. Then those veterans come here for 2 weeks. We spend the first week, we have 4 veterans, we'll have at least 8 dogs. Because we also listen to the dogs. The dogs will tell us which veteran they want to work for and which one they want to avoid. But I'm going to pick on you because you're standing next to me. Because some people will pet the dog like, hi, good dog, I love you. And other ones want to smother you. And then you've got those that, get away from me. So all of that is little things that we have to take in consideration, because if you're suffering from post-traumatic stress, I need to place a dog, let that dog pick you so that he's going to want to be with you, want to do things for you, and not trying to avoid you. I was working one with this week, and his favorite thing to do with the dog is this. He said, I'm giving it a head massage. Well, for the first 2 minutes, we're going, okay, but then she's gonna go, get away from me. So all of that is things you have to take in consideration of what makes a good placement. After they spend 2 weeks with me, I'll send that dog home with them, and just to let the dog acclimate to the new environment. On the 3rd week, we send a trainer to your area, and then we go out, you're public with you. We go out to restaurants, we go to the VA with you. If you got a job, we go to the job with you. And we always make sure they have a relationship with a veterinarian. And then we're on call. We call them every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, but we set eyes on them once a year. So we can see the health of their dog, how many weight they've gained, because we do the hand feeding. Well, if you run out, it's really tempting to go get some more and put it in your pocket, and then the dog's gain additional weight, which cuts down on the lifetime of the dog. So all of that is the process of what we do. But we stay in contact with them at least once a year for the lifetime of the dog. So we put a whole lot into it. But we figured it out one time. They said it costs us about $35,000 to $40,000 to train a dog. If you divide that over 10 years, that dog is with that veteran, it's less than your Sonic soda a day that you're giving that veteran, that dog, for the rest of his 8 to 10 years.
Could your I'm sorry.
You're fine, go ahead.
Could your facility take more dogs? I mean, are you
Yes.
planning on growing?
Right now, what I would rather do is expand in another college if I had to expand, because living in these kennels is not what they need to do. They need to be socialized. But again, we do it a little different. I don't give a dog to one person for 14 months. We don't give a dog to a person more than 3 to 4 months, and then we move it to the next person and to the next person. That way, when that dog is placed, we didn't rip his heart out. You took me away from everybody. They learn to generalize. So yes, we can expand, but we'll be picky on how we do it.
Okay.
When you started this, what was your inspiration, or why did you start this?
The veterans asked me to. There was a group of veterans down at the Dallas VA trying to train their own dogs in the spinal cord injury.
Were you a trainer before?
Yes,
or?
I was
Okay.
a service dog trainer before. Never intended to start us. As you know, I let Sarah get up here and talk. It's not my goal to start a nonprofit, but when they asked for help, I could not do it. And I got into it for a couple of years, and Dallas News did a story on what I was trying to do. Did not have a waiting list, never wanted a waiting list. And Texas Department of Criminal Justice actually contacted me and said, what can we do to help? And that's how that partnership came up. And then some Aggie kids decided they wanted to be puppy raisers, and now we have over 200. You know, we run about 25 to 40 dogs at a time at Texas A&M. That has been a lifesaver, especially during COVID, because kids kept the dogs anyway. Prisons almost shut down. So it
When did
helped
you
us.
start the organization?
We got our nonprofit in February of '06.
06. Wow, you've come a long way.
We've
And
come a long way. It's a lot, as I said, it takes a village. It really does. It's not something Lori did by herself. I couldn't do it without people like Sarah. Dr. Rhonda's spending her days off here doing
Right.
surgeries for us, and y'all doing golf tournaments. It is a village that helps these veterans.
Dog right here. The golden. Hi.
That sanitizer. How old is this one? Look how big her paws are. She's gonna be big. Yeah, thank you for that. She's mine. Oh, yes. I want to sorry. How old is she? She's getting she's pretty. Is that what you wanted? Tummy rub. It's like ever. Why are you stopping leading? I know what you guys like. Can we do it again?
So it's a 2-bedroom, wheelchair accessible veteran home.
So this is where they stay when they come
Yes.
to be matched. Okay.
Wow.
And they come to what?
Now, when they come for the first time, no.
Okay.
Once you get a dog from us, we adopt you, your family, and then this house is welcome to you for any time that you need to come. Because the first time when they come, we have more than 2, so we can't give you 2 and not give you 2 any. Y'all come on in. I don't know if you've dealt a lot with veterans with post-traumatic stress, but occasionally they get freaked out at being in a new environment. So we have a full security system on this house so that they don't get freaked out at night. There's a lot of traffic going up and down. A lot of veterans isolate themselves, so this would be nervous being in a new location. So we have full security system for them to be able to monitor the cameras. Everything is wheelchair height. Even the workroom is fully wheelchair accessible. And then we have 2 suites with full wheelchair bedrooms. That's all our housekeeping, and we've got to make up the beds.
She's like a grandma. At Fairham, she gets.
What'd she do? Quick Kleenex.